Good morning. How are you guys today? Thank you all for viewing with us. Welcome to Bible Study with Betty and Andre. We're continuing our studies in the Gospel according to Luke, and today we're in chapter 6, and we're looking at the subject, Jesus is Lord. And when it says that Jesus is Lord, it means that he's owner and possessor of everything in heaven and in earth. And so in chapter 6, we're going to get started, and we'll begin at verse 1. And it came to pass on the second Sabbath after the first, that he went through the cornfields, and his disciples plucked the ears of corn and did eat, rubbing them in their hands, that is, rubbing the kernels of corn in their hands. Verse 2, and certain of the Pharisees said unto them, Why do ye that which is not lawful to do on the Sabbath days? And Jesus answering them said, and if we notice when we studied the scriptures, whenever the Pharisees or religious leaders would ask the disciples a question, Jesus would speak on their behalf. And we can learn to let him speak on our behalf also. So Jesus in verse 3 answering said unto them, and Jesus answering them said, Have you not read so much as this, what David did when himself was an hungered, and they which were with him, how he went into the house of God and did take and eat of the showbread, and gave also to them that were with him, which is not lawful to eat but for the priest alone. The showbread is only lawful for the priest to eat, but David is not a priest, nor his men. But because he was hungry, he asked the high priest, and he gave him showbread to eat. And this is recorded in 1 Samuel chapter 21, verse 6, verse 5. And he said unto them, that the Son of Man is Lord, owner also of the Sabbath. And in another passage, he'll say, the Sabbath was not made for man, but man for the Sabbath. And so verse 6, and it came to pass also on another Sabbath that he entered into the synagogue and taught. And there was a man whose right hand was withered. Verse 7, and the scribes and Pharisees watched him, whether he would heal on the Sabbath day. The reason they watched him to see if he would heal on the Sabbath day is that they might find an accusation against him. Verse 8, but he knew their thoughts, and said unto the man which had the withered hand, Rise up and stand forth in the midst, or in the middle of the room. And the man arose and stood forth. Verse 9, then said Jesus unto them, the religious leaders, I will ask you one thing. Is it lawful on the Sabbath days to do good or to do evil, to save life or to destroy it? Verse 10, and looking round about upon them all, he said unto the man, Stretch forth thy hand. And he did so, and his hand was restored, whole as the other. So he did good on the Sabbath day. It would be evil for him to have the power to heal the man on the Sabbath day and refuse to do that which is right based upon the criticism of the religious leaders. And now Jesus is going to give the method by which he chose his 12 disciples and called them apostles. Verse 12. And it came to pass in those days that he went out into a mountain to pray and continued all night in prayer to God. So he's getting ready to make a big decision, and we need to pray, if necessary, all day and night before we make a big decision. And so verse 13 says, and when it was day, he called unto him his disciples. So you'll see here that there were many disciples, but out of the many, he chose 12. And of them, he chose 12. That is, of the multitude, he chose 12, whom also he named apostles. Verse 14. Simon, whom he also named Peter, he named him Peter. And Andrew, his brother, James and John, Philip and Bartholomew, Matthew and Thomas, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon called Zelotes. Verse 16, and Judas the brother of James, and Judas Iscariot, which also was the traitor. Verse 17, and he came down with them and stood in the plain or in the valley, and the company of his disciples and a great multitude of people out of all Judea and Jerusalem and from the seacoast of Tyre and Sidon, which came to hear him and to be healed of their diseases. So they wanted to hear him, but they also wanted him to heal their diseases. And Jesus is getting ready to give a sermon that's is recorded in the book of Matthew, chapter 5, on the Sermon on the Mount. But in Matthew, he's on the mountain and he's sad. But here in Luke, he's in the valley and he stands. He gives some of the same words, but it's a different setting in Matthew than it is here in the Gospel of Luke. So verse 18 says, and they that were vexed with unclean spirits also came, and they were healed. Verse 19, and the whole multitude sought to touch him, for there went virtue or power out of him, and he healed them all that came to be healed of their diseases. Verse 20, and he lifted up his eyes on his disciples and said, blessed be ye poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Verse 21, blessed are ye that hunger now, for ye shall be filled. Blessed are ye that weep now, for ye shall laugh. 22, blessed are ye when men shall hate you, and when they shall separate you from their company, and shall reproach you and cast out your name as evil for the Son of Man's sake. Verse 23, rejoice ye in that day when they cast you out, and rejoice in that day and leap for joy. For behold, your reward is great in heaven. For in this like manner did their fathers unto the prophets. Verse 24, but woe unto you that are rich, for ye have received your consolation. Woe unto you that are full, for ye shall hunger. Woe unto you that laugh now, for ye shall mourn and weep. Woe unto you when all men shall speak well of you, for so did their fathers to the false prophets. So he's pronouncing these woes to show the religious leaders the difference in what they're doing and the situation of the people where they are. So he pronounces these woes. In verse 27 says, but I say unto you which hear, those that came to hear, those who have ears to hear. This is what he's saying to us in our character. Love your enemies. Do good to them which hate you. Bless them that curse you, and pray for them which despitefully use you. Verse 29, and unto him that smiteth thee on the one cheek, offer also the other. And him that taketh away thy cloak, forbid not to take thy coat also. Now these are things that God is saying for the righteous to do, but they must be born again and surrender their will to God's will in order for these things to take place. Verse 30, give to every man that asks of thee, and of him that taketh away thy goods, ask them not again. Verse 31, and as ye would that men should do to you, do ye also to them likewise. For if ye love them which love you, what thank have you? For sinners also love those that love them. And if you do good to them which do good to you, what thank have ye? For sinners also do even the same. Verse 34. And if you lend or give to them of whom you hope to receive, what thank have ye? For sinners also lend to sinners to receive as much again. But this is what you do. Verse 35, but love ye your enemies, and do good and lend or give, hoping for nothing again, and your reward shall be great, and ye shall be the children of the highest. For he is kind unto the unthankful and to the evil. The rain shines on the just and on the unjust. 36. Be ye therefore merciful, as your Father also is merciful. More admonitions or commandments. Verse 37. Judge not, and ye shall not be judged. Condemn not, and ye shall not be condemned. Forgive, and ye shall be forgiven. Verse 38. Give, and it shall be given unto you, good measure, pressed down and shaken together, and running over shall men give into your bosom. For with the same measure that ye meet withal shall be measured to you again. The same standard that you set for yourself, you'll be blessed in the same way if you treat people the way you want to be treated. Verse 39, and he spake a parable unto them. Can the blind lead the blind? Shall they not both fall into the ditch? Verse 40, the disciple is not above his master, but every one that is perfect shall be as his master. Verse 41, and why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but perceivest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Verse 42, either how canst thou say to thy brother, Let me pull out the mote that is in thine eye, when thou thyself beholdest not the beam that is in thine own eye. Thou hypocrite, cast out first the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to pull out the mote that is in thy brother's eye. So let's not be condemn one another, judge one another, because if we do whatever we do, we're gonna reap that same thing. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. And he illustrates in verse 43, and this he's speaking to his disciples, and he's letting all of us know what the character of the believer must be like. Verse 43, for a good tree bringeth not forth corrupt fruit, neither doth the corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. For every tree is known by his own fruit. For of thorns men do not gather figs, nor of a bramble bush gather they grapes. A good man out of the good treasure of his heart, a good man is a saved man. A good man out of the good treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is good. An evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is evil. For of the abundance of the heart his mouth speaketh. So whatever is in our hearts is going to come out in our conduct. And why call ye me Lord, Lord, and do not the things which I say? And now he's going to give the two foundations upon which we can all build when we, and that is build our lives based on the foundation. And the foundation is the principles and the doctrines of Christ. And you can read about that in 1 Corinthians, the 3rd chapter, verse 47. Whosoever cometh to me and heareth my sayings and doeth them, I will show you to whom he is like. He is like a man which built an house and digged deep and laid the foundation on a rock. And when the flood arose and the stream beat vehemently upon the house, and could not shake it, for it was founded upon a rock, and that rock is Jesus. But, verse 49, but he that heareth my words and doeth them not is like a man that without a foundation built his house upon the earth, upon earthly things, against which the stream did beat vehemently, and immediately it fell, and the ruin of that house was great. And I would urge you to read 1 Corinthians, the 3rd chapter. I know I'm repeating myself, but that's a very important chapter to learn how we are to build our lives based upon the Word of God. So thank you all for listening. I pray for you all, and I pray that you all keep us in your prayers. And my email address is bjt1125@yahoo.com. And I'm also on YouTube, and you can get my channels by typing in Betty Thomas Bible. Thank you all for listening. You all have a great day and a great week. And thank you again. And be sure, for those of you who may be listening who have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please subscribe. It does not cost anything. Just push that button that says subscribe. So thank you all and have a great day.